Daniel sat in his massive corner office on the 45th floor, staring at his phone. Another text message. Another woman asking if he could fly her to Paris for the weekend. Another relationship that wasn't really a relationship at all. He tossed the phone onto his mahogany desk and rubbed his temples. At 36 years old, he'd built a software company from nothing into something worth $3 billion. He had everything money could buy. A penthouse apartment with floor-to-ceiling windows. Cars he barely drove. Invitations to parties with celebrities he didn't care about meeting. But sitting there in his expensive suit, he felt completely alone. His best friend Tom walked in without knocking. That was one of the perks of being friends since college. Tom was his chief financial officer now, but back then, they'd shared a tiny apartment and eaten ramen noodles for dinner most nights. "You look miserable," Tom said, dropping into the leather chair across from Daniel's desk. "Just tired," Daniel replied, but they both knew it was more than that. "Let me guess. Ashley found out how much you're really worth?" Daniel nodded. They'd been dating for 2 months. Everything seemed perfect until she Googled him. The next day, she started hinting about expensive gifts. A week later, she brought up a business idea that needed investment. Within 3 weeks, the woman who'd seemed so genuine was just another person seeing dollar signs instead of him. "I'm done," Daniel said quietly. "I'm so tired of this, Tom. Every single time. They seem real, and then they find out, and everything changes." Tom leaned back in his chair, thinking. Then he sat up suddenly, like he'd just had the best idea of his life. "What if they didn't find out? What do you mean? What if you met someone who had no idea who you are? Someone who thinks you're just a regular guy?" Daniel laughed, but it was a sad sound. "And how exactly would I do that? I'm on magazine covers. My face is literally on billboards downtown." "A blind date," Tom said, his excitement growing. "My wife Rachel goes to this gym. She's always talking about this woman there. Nice person, works hard, hasn't dated in years. Rachel keeps saying someone should set her up with a decent guy." "I don't know," Daniel said, but something in his chest stirred. Hope, maybe, or just curiosity. "Come on, what have you got to lose? Dress down, use a different name if you want. Just be a normal guy for once. See what happens." 2 days later, Daniel stood in front of his closet feeling ridiculous. He'd sent his assistant to a thrift store to buy regular clothes. Jeans that were actually worn, not designer distressed. A plain t-shirt. Old sneakers. He looked at himself in the mirror and barely recognized the man staring back. Tom had arranged everything. The woman's name was Lisa. She was 32, worked as a nurse, and had a daughter. That's all Daniel knew. They were meeting at a small coffee shop across town, far from the business district where someone might recognize him. Daniel borrowed Tom's old Honda for the drive. His own cars, a Mercedes, a Tesla, and a vintage Porsche he never drove, stayed in the garage. As he pulled into the coffee shop parking lot, his hands were actually shaking. He couldn't remember the last time he'd been nervous about anything. He got there 15 minutes early and ordered a regular coffee. Not the fancy espresso he usually drank. Just coffee. Black. He sat at a corner table and waited. She walked in 12 minutes late, slightly out of breath. The first thing he noticed was her smile, apologetic but warm. She wore a simple blue dress and had her brown hair pulled back in a ponytail. No expensive jewelry, no designer bag. Just a woman who looked like she'd rushed to get there. "I'm so sorry," she said, sliding into the chair across from him. "My daughter needed help finding her soccer cleats, and then I hit every red light between my place and here. You must think I'm completely disorganized." "It's fine," Daniel said, and he meant it. "I'm just glad you made it." Her name was Lisa, and within 5 minutes Daniel forgot about being nervous. She was easy to talk to, really easy. She asked him what he did for work, and he said what he and Tom had planned. "I work in IT, tech support mostly, fixing computers, solving problems." "Oh, that must be interesting," she said, and didn't ask anything else about it. Instead, she told him about her daughter, Mia, who was 7 and obsessed with soccer and dinosaurs in equal measure. "She asked me yesterday if dinosaurs would have been good at soccer," Lisa laughed. Like, would a T-Rex be a good goalie with those tiny arms? I had no idea what to tell her. Daniel found himself laughing too. Really laughing. That's actually a great question. I think a T-Rex would be terrible at soccer, but maybe a velociraptor? They were supposed to be smart and fast. I'll tell her that. She'll love it. They talked for 2 hours. Daniel learned that Lisa worked long shifts at the hospital, sometimes picking up extra hours on weekends doing catering work to make ends meet. She never complained about it. She just mentioned it as a fact, the way someone might mention the weather. She told him about her apartment, which was small but cozy, about how Mia was doing well in 2nd grade but struggled with reading, about her sister who worried about her constantly and kept trying to set her up on dates. This is actually the first date I've been on in 3 years, Lisa admitted, stirring her coffee. After Mia's dad left, I focused on being a mom, you know? Everything else seemed too complicated. What made you say yes this time? Daniel asked. Lisa thought about it. Rachel, she's my friend from the gym. She kept saying I deserved to do something for myself, that Mia would be fine with her grandma for a few hours. And honestly, I was lonely. Is that okay to say on a first date? Maybe that's too honest. No, Daniel said quickly. It's perfect, I'm lonely too. Something passed between them then. A recognition. 2 people who'd been alone for different reasons, sitting in a coffee shop that served mediocre coffee, just talking like real people. Lisa never asked about his car. Never asked where he lived or how much money he made. She asked if he had siblings, 2 brothers, both younger. She asked what he liked to read, mostly science fiction. She asked if he'd ever had pets, a dog, when he was a kid named Buster who ate an entire Thanksgiving turkey off the counter once. When the coffee shop started closing, Daniel couldn't believe 3 hours had passed. They walked out to the parking lot together, and Lisa stopped next to an old Toyota that had seen better days. This is me, she said, patting the hood affectionately. Bessie's not pretty, but she runs. I think Bessie looks great, Daniel said, and he meant it. Would you want to do this again? Lisa asked, and there was something vulnerable in her voice, like she was afraid he'd say no. I'd really like that, Daniel said. She smiled, and it was the kind of smile that changed her whole face. Good. Me too. As Daniel drove back to his penthouse that night in Tom's Honda, he felt something he hadn't felt in years. Hope. Real hope. Not for a business deal or a successful product launch. Hope that maybe, just maybe, someone could like him for who he actually was underneath everything else. He had no idea that the next few months would change his entire life. But sitting there at that first red light, thinking about Lisa's laugh, and the way she talked about her daughter, Daniel smiled to himself in the darkness. For the first time in a long time, he was actually happy. Over the next month, Daniel found himself living 2 completely different lives. During the day, he was the CEO making million-dollar decisions in boardrooms. At night and on weekends, he was just Danny, the IT guy who took the bus and ate at cheap restaurants. Their second date was at a small Italian place Lisa suggested, the kind with checkered tablecloths and candles stuck in old wine bottles. Daniel had eaten at 5-star restaurants all over the world, but he couldn't remember enjoying a meal more than that night. Lisa told him stories about her nursing shifts, about the elderly patient who kept trying to set her up with his grandson, about the time someone brought their pet chicken to the emergency room. A chicken? Daniel laughed so hard he almost choked on his spaghetti. I'm completely serious, a pet chicken named Barbara. The owner was more panicked than most parents I see with sick kids. Lisa wiped tears from her eyes. She was laughing so hard at the memory. By their 4th date, Lisa invited him to meet Mia. Daniel had never been more nervous, not even when pitching his company to investors years ago. He showed up at Lisa's apartment building with his heart pounding. The building was old, with flickering hallway lights and an elevator that creaked ominously. Lisa's apartment was on the 3rd floor. When she opened the door, Daniel saw a space that was small but filled with warmth. Drawings covered the refrigerator, books were stacked everywhere. A soccer ball sat in the corner, and there was Mia, hiding halfway behind her mother with wide, curious eyes. Hi, Daniel said, crouching down to her level. Your mom tells me you know everything about dinosaurs. Mia's shyness disappeared instantly. Do you know about dinosaurs? A little bit, but I bet you know way more than me. That was all it took. Mia grabbed his hand and dragged him to her room to show him her dinosaur collection. Lisa stood in the doorway, watching them with soft eyes as Mia explained the difference between herbivores and carnivores, showing Daniel each plastic dinosaur with serious importance. They ordered pizza that night because Lisa had worked a double shift. Daniel noticed how she calculated the tip carefully, counting out dollars from her wallet. He noticed the thermostat was set lower than it should be for autumn weather. He noticed Mia's sneakers had holes in them, even though everything else about her was carefully taken care of. After Mia went to bed, Daniel and Lisa sat on her small couch drinking tea. She'd apologized for not having coffee, saying she hadn't made it to the store yet. Daniel wanted to tell her right then. Wanted to say he could solve every financial worry she had with a single phone call, but he was terrified of losing this. Losing her. Thank you, Lisa said quietly. For what? For being so good with Mia. Her father left before she turned 2. She doesn't really have memories of him, but I always worry about how it affects her. Seeing her laugh with you tonight, it meant something. Daniel reached over and took her hand. She's an amazing kid. You've done an incredible job. Some days I'm not sure about that. I'm always working. Always tired. Always worried about money and whether I'm giving her enough attention. Lisa's voice cracked slightly. Sorry, I don't usually dump all this on people. Don't apologize. I want to know everything about your life. She leaned her head on his shoulder and they sat like that until Daniel realized he needed to catch the last bus. He didn't tell her he had 3 cars sitting in a garage downtown. Didn't mention his driver was always on call. He just kissed her goodnight and took the bus home, his heart feeling fuller than it had in years. A week later, Mia's school sent home a permission slip for a field trip to the Science Museum. Cost: $150 per student. Daniel was sitting at Lisa's kitchen table helping Mia with her math homework when she brought it over, her face hopeful. Mom, can I go? Please, everyone's going and there's a whole dinosaur exhibit. Lisa took the paper and Daniel watched her face carefully hide disappointment. We'll see, baby. Let me check our budget, okay? That means no, Mia said quietly, her shoulders drooping. She went back to her homework without another word. Later, after Mia was in bed, Lisa cried quietly in the kitchen. Daniel held her while she apologized for being emotional. I work so hard, she whispered. 2 jobs. Extra shifts. I budget everything, but it's never enough. I can't even send my daughter on a field trip. What kind of mother can't do that? The kind who's doing everything possible, Daniel said firmly. The kind who's raising an amazing, smart, kind little girl. Money doesn't measure what kind of mother you are. But that night after he left, Daniel couldn't sleep. He lay in his king-sized bed in his penthouse and thought about Mia's face. About Lisa's tears. He picked up his phone and called Tom. I need you to do something for me, Daniel said, and I need you to make it look completely legitimate. The next day, the school called Lisa. They'd received an anonymous donation specifically for students who needed financial assistance with the field trip. Mia was approved to go. When Lisa told Daniel about it, crying happy tears this time, he held her and felt guilty and relieved at the same time. He started doing things like that. Small things, anonymous things. When Lisa's car broke down, a local mechanic called saying someone had prepaid for the repairs as part of a community outreach program. When Mia needed new glasses, the optical shop claimed they were running a program for single parents. Daniel watching Lisa's relief each time, knowing he was deceiving her but unable to stop himself from wanting to help. Tom warned him repeatedly. This is getting out of hand. You need to tell her the truth. I will, Daniel promised. Soon, I just need her to know me first. Really know me. The problem was Daniel was falling in love. Real love. The kind he'd never experienced before. Lisa packed him lunches even though she thought he could barely afford to eat out. She invited him to family dinners where her mother and sister interrogated him kindly about his intentions. She held his hand during movies and laughed at his terrible jokes and made him feel like the most important person in the world. One evening, they were walking through the park near her apartment. It was getting dark and cold, and Lisa had loaned him an old jacket because he'd forgotten his. They stopped to watch Mia play on the swings. I need to tell you something, Lisa said, looking nervous. Daniel's heart stopped. Did she know? I'm falling for you, she continued. I know it's only been a month and maybe that's too fast, but I needed you to know. You're the first person in so long who's made me feel like I'm more than just a mom or a nurse or someone trying to survive. You make me feel like me again. Daniel pulled her close, breathing in the scent of her shampoo, something cheap from the drugstore that he'd grown to love more than any expensive perfume. I'm falling for you too, he said. And it was the truest thing he'd said in weeks. That night, lying in his penthouse again, Daniel made a decision. He would tell her. He'd plan something simple and honest, and he'd explain everything. Why he'd hidden the truth, what he'd been afraid of, how much she meant to him. But the next morning, everything changed. Tom called him at 6 a.m. We have a problem. A big one. A business magazine is running a profile on you. They've been following you around, taking pictures. There's one of you and Lisa at that Italian restaurant. Another of you outside her apartment building. They're calling it Billionaire's Secret Romance. Daniel felt his blood run cold. When does it publish?
Tomorrow morning.
It'll be everywhere by noon. Online, social media, everywhere. Daniel sat on the edge of his bed, his head in his hands. He had maybe 24 hours before Lisa found out the truth from strangers. Before she saw his face on magazine covers and realized the man she'd been dating was one of the richest people in the country. He'd wanted to tell her on his terms, gently, with time to explain. Now he had one day to figure out how to tell the woman he loved that their entire relationship had been built on a lie. One day before everything fell apart, Daniel picked up his phone to call her, then put it down. Then picked it up again. His hands were shaking. How do you tell someone that you've been lying to them? Even if you were lying because you were desperate to be loved for who you really are. He didn't have an answer. But he knew one thing for certain. Tomorrow everything would change. The only question was whether their relationship could survive the truth. Daniel spent the entire day trying to reach Lisa. She wasn't answering her phone. Tom told him she was working a double shift at the hospital and probably had her phone in her locker. Every hour that passed felt like torture. The magazine would hit stands in the morning. He had to tell her tonight. He showed up at the hospital at 9 p.m, waiting in the lobby like a crazy person. When Lisa finally came out in her scrubs, exhausted from a 12-hour shift, she looked surprised and happy to see him. Hey, what are you doing here? I need to talk to you. It's important. Something in his voice made her smile fade. Okay, let me just grab my stuff. They sat in his borrowed Honda in the parking lot. The overhead lights cast strange shadows across Lisa's face. She looked worried now, her nurse instincts probably telling her something was wrong. Are you breaking up with me? She asked quietly. No, God no. Lisa, Daniel's mouth went dry. How did you even start this conversation? I haven't been completely honest with you. Her face went very still. You're married. What? No, nothing like that. I'm not married. I've never been married. Daniel ran his hands through his hair, frustrated with himself. My job, I lied about my job. Lisa blinked, confused. You're not in IT? I am, technically. I own a tech company. I founded it. I'm the CEO. The words tumbled out faster now. My company is worth billions. I have money, Lisa, a lot of money. The kind of money that changes everything. She stared at him like he was speaking another language. Then she laughed, but it wasn't a happy sound. Is this a joke? I wish it was. Daniel pulled out his phone and searched his own name. Articles popped up immediately. Forbes lists, business profiles. Photos of him in expensive suits at charity galas. He handed her the phone. Lisa scrolled through the images, her face getting paler with each swipe. Her hands started shaking. This is you. These are all you. Yes. Daniel Chen, CEO of Vertex Solutions, net worth $3.2 billion. She read from the screen like she was reading a stranger's biography. Then she looked up at him and her eyes were filled with tears. Who are you? I'm the same person I've always been. You lied to me. Her voice cracked. For weeks, you sat in my apartment and watched me count pennies for pizza. You watched me cry because I couldn't afford my daughter's field trip. And you're a billionaire? I wanted you to know the real me. Not my money, the real you. Lisa laughed again, harsh and painful. The real you is a liar. You let me feel ashamed of my apartment, my car, my life. Do you know how humiliating this is? Lisa, please, get out. What? Get out of this car. Get out of my life. I never want to see you again. She threw his phone at him and opened the car door. And for the record, the field trip. The car repairs? My daughter's glasses? I know that was you. I'm not stupid, Daniel. I figured it out 2 weeks ago. I just wanted to believe you had a good reason for lying. I guess I was the stupid one after all. She slammed the door and walked to her car. Daniel sat frozen, watching her drive away. She'd known. For 2 weeks, she'd known he was helping her and hadn't said anything, and he'd still kept lying to her face. He didn't go home that night. He drove around the city in Tom's car until sunrise, replaying the conversation over and over. By the time the magazine hit stands the next morning, Daniel had already lost the only thing that mattered. The next 2 weeks were the worst of Daniel's life. He threw himself into work, but even that didn't help. Tom would find him staring out his office window, not hearing a word in meetings. His assistant started screening his calls because he kept hoping one of them would be Lisa. The magazine article was everywhere, just like Tom predicted. Photos of him and Lisa at restaurants walking through parks outside her apartment. The headlines were brutal. Billionaire's secret romance. Tech CEO goes undercover for love. Poor girl, rich guy. A modern fairy tale? Daniel's phone exploded with messages from people he barely knew, congratulating him on his relationship. People at work whispered when he walked by. The whole thing made him sick. But what really killed him was thinking about Lisa, about how those headlines made her sound like some prize he'd won. Like their relationship was a social experiment instead of the most real thing he'd ever experienced. Mia was the one who broke the stalemate. 2 weeks after everything fell apart, Daniel got a call from an unknown number. When he answered, a small voice said, "Mr. Danny?" "It's Mia." Daniel's heart nearly stopped. "Mia, does your mom know you're calling?" "No, I took her phone when she was in the shower. She's been really sad. She cries a lot when she thinks I'm asleep." Daniel closed his eyes, leaning back in his office chair. "I'm so sorry, Mia. I never wanted to hurt your mom. She says you lied. That you're really rich and you pretended to be normal?" "Yeah, I did. It was wrong. Why did you do it? How do you explain adult fears and loneliness to a 7-year-old? Because sometimes when people know you have money, they stop seeing you. They only see the money. And your mom, she saw me. The real me. I was scared that if she knew about the money, that would change. But she still saw you," Mia said simply. "She told Aunt Rachel that you were the kindest person she'd ever met. That you were patient with me and funny and made her feel safe. None of that was about money." "She said that?" "Yeah, before she found out. But I think maybe she still thinks it even if she's mad." Daniel swallowed hard. "Mia, I need you to hang up now and put your mom's phone back, okay? She's going to worry if she can't find it. Are you going to give up on her?" "What?" "My teacher says people who really care about things don't give up when stuff gets hard." "Do you really care about my mom?" "More than anything in the world." "Then don't give up. She's worth fighting for." "We both are." The line went dead. Daniel sat there for a long moment, staring at his phone. Out of the mouths of children, his own mother would have said. He called Tom. "I need your help. And probably your wife's help too." "For what?" "I need to figure out how to fix this." "How to show Lisa that I'm serious. That I'm sorry. That everything we had was real." Tom sighed. "You know she might not forgive you, right? You can do everything perfect and she still might say no." "I know. But Mia's right. She's worth fighting for." Over the next 3 days, Daniel barely slept. He made calls, arranged meetings, and planned. Tom's wife, Rachel, became his secret ally, checking in with Lisa without revealing that she was talking to Daniel. Meanwhile, something else happened. Something that would change everything and prove once and for all whether what Daniel and Lisa had was real or not. Lisa's mother called her in a panic on Tuesday morning. Mia had collapsed at school. The school nurse said it was probably just dehydration, but when Lisa got there, she knew it was more serious. Her nursing instincts screamed that something was really wrong. At the emergency room, the doctors ran tests. Then more tests. By Tuesday evening, Lisa was sitting in a consultation room with a pediatric specialist who was using words like emergency surgery and tonight if possible. Mia had appendicitis, but it was complicated. The appendix was close to rupturing. They needed to operate immediately, but Lisa's insurance had a high deductible. The hospital needed a deposit, $50,000 before they could schedule the surgery. Lisa's hand shook as she called her bank. Her credit cards, her mother, her sister. She could scrape together maybe $5,000 if she emptied everything. It wasn't enough. It wasn't nearly enough. The hospital administrator was sympathetic but firm. Without the deposit, they'd have to transfer Mia to a county hospital. That would take hours Mia might not have. Lisa sat in the waiting room with her head in her hands, Mia sleeping fitfully on the bed inside, and felt more helpless than she'd ever felt in her life. She'd survived being a single mother, survived poverty and exhaustion and every challenge thrown at her. But this? She couldn't fix this. She pulled out her phone with shaking hands. There was only one person she knew who could help. One person who could solve this with a phone call. The same person who'd broken her heart 2 weeks ago. She stared at Daniel's number on her screen. Her pride screamed at her not to call. Her heart was still broken. But Mia was everything. Mia was her whole world. With tears streaming down her face, Lisa pressed call. Daniel answered on the first ring. "Lisa, I need your help." Her voice came out as barely a whisper. "Please, it's Mia." Daniel didn't ask questions. He didn't hesitate. "Which hospital?" "I'm on my way, St. Mary's, but Daniel, I need money." "I hate asking. I hate that I have to do this, but Mia needs surgery and they won't do it without a deposit and I don't have—" "Stop. Don't even think about it. I'm making a call right now. The surgery will happen. I promise you." Lisa broke down crying. "Thank you. God, thank you. I'll be there in 15 minutes. Hang on, okay?" Daniel was already moving, grabbing his keys and his wallet. He called the hospital from his car, speaking directly to the administrator. Within 5 minutes, the deposit was handled. Within 10 minutes, the surgical team was prepping. By the time Daniel ran through the emergency room doors, Mia was already being wheeled toward the operating room. He found Lisa in the hallway, her face pale and streaked with tears. When she saw him, something broke in her expression. She walked straight into his arms and sobbed against his chest while doctors and nurses moved around them. "She's going to be okay," Daniel said, holding her tight. "She's strong, just like her mom." They took Mia into surgery at 8:30. The doctor said it would take about 2 hours, maybe more, depending on what they found. Daniel and Lisa sat in the surgical waiting room, with its uncomfortable chairs and flickering television that nobody watched. Lisa's mother and sister arrived within the hour. Rachel came too, bringing coffee and sandwiches that nobody ate. They all sat together in that awful limbo between fear and hope, waiting for news. Around 10 o'clock, Lisa's sister Jessica pulled Daniel aside. She was a few years older than Lisa, with the same kind eyes but a much more protective edge. "We need to talk," Jessica said, leading him to a quiet corner. "Okay. I know who you are. I've known since that magazine article came out. Lisa showed it to me, crying her eyes out in my living room." Jessica crossed her arms. "And I need to know right now what your intentions are with my sister." "I love her," Daniel said simply. "I know I messed up. I know I hurt her. But I love her and I love Mia. And I'll spend the rest of my life making this right if she'll let me." That's a pretty speech, but pretty speeches don't mean much when you've already lied for weeks. You're right. I did lie. I was selfish and scared, and I hurt the person I care about most in the world. Daniel met her eyes steadily. But everything else was real. Every moment, every laugh, every feeling, that was all real. Jessica studied him for a long moment. Then she sighed. "She loves you too, you know. Even though she's furious with you. Even though she feels humiliated and betrayed. She still loves you. I can see it on her face every time someone mentions your name." "Then help me," Daniel said. "Help me figure out how to fix this." "I don't know if you can fix this, Daniel. You didn't just lie about having money. You watched her struggle. You watched her feel ashamed of what she could and couldn't provide for her daughter. That's the part that really hurt her. Not the money. The fact that you saw her at her most vulnerable and didn't tell her the truth." Daniel felt like he'd been punched, because Jessica was absolutely right. That was the worst part of what he'd done. Before he could respond, a doctor came through the doors. Everyone jumped to their feet. Lisa grabbed Daniel's hand without thinking, her fingers crushing his. "The surgery went well," the doctor said, and the whole room seemed to exhale at once. "We removed the appendix before it ruptured. Mia's in recovery now. She'll need to stay a few days, but she's going to be just fine." Lisa burst into tears again, this time from relief. Her mother hugged her. Jessica hugged Daniel, whispering thank you before going to her sister. Rachel wiped her own eyes. They let Lisa see Mia first, just for a few minutes. When she came back out, she looked exhausted but lighter. "She's asking for you," she told Daniel quietly. Daniel's throat got tight.
"Me? She wants to see you."
"If that's okay." He followed a nurse back to the recovery area. Mia was small and pale against the white sheets, with an IV in her arm and monitors beeping softly. But when she saw him, she smiled. "Hi, Mr. Danny." "Hey, kiddo." Daniel sat in the chair next to her bed, taking her small hand carefully. "You scared us pretty good there. Mom says you helped, that you made the doctors fix me right away. Your mom would have figured it out. She always does." Mia's eyes were drooping from the medication. "Are you and Mom going to be okay? Like together, okay?" "I don't know, sweetheart, I hope so. But that's up to your mom. She's not really mad anymore. She's just sad. Sad is harder to fix than mad." Mia yawned. "But you should try really hard, because we both like you a lot." Daniel stayed with her until she fell asleep, then went back to the waiting room. Lisa was sitting alone now, her family having gone to get real food. She looked up when he approached. "Thank you," she said, "for everything. For coming so fast. For handling the money without making me feel small about it. You never have to thank me for that." "Yes, I do." Lisa twisted her hands together. "Daniel, I've been thinking. About everything. About us." Daniel's heart was pounding, but he kept his face calm. "Okay. I can't do this." The words hit him like a physical blow, but he forced himself to stay still. To listen. "I can't be with someone who lies to me, even if they think they have good reasons. I have a daughter. Everything I do, every choice I make, I have to think about what it teaches her. And this? What you did. I can't tell her that's okay." "I understand," Daniel said quietly, even though he felt like he was breaking apart inside. "But," Lisa continued, her voice shaking, "I also can't ignore that you dropped everything and came when I called. That you didn't ask questions or make me beg. That you sat with my daughter and held her hand. That you're here in this hospital at midnight when you could be anywhere else in the world." She looked up at him with tears in her eyes. "I can't be with you right now. I'm too hurt, too angry, too confused. But maybe someday I could be. If you're willing to wait. If you're willing to earn back my trust piece by piece with honesty this time." Daniel felt hope bloom in his chest, small but real. "I'll wait as long as it takes. No more lies. About anything, ever. No more lies. I promise. And we start over. Completely over. Not where we were. From the beginning." "Hi," Daniel said, holding out his hand formally. "I'm Daniel Chen. I'm the CEO of a tech company. I'm also really bad at cooking. I'm afraid of spiders, and I once cried during a commercial about dogs. I'd really like to get to know you." Lisa laughed through her tears, taking his hand. "I'm Lisa Rodriguez. I'm a nurse and a single mom. I'm allergic to shellfish, I can't sing to save my life, and I'm terrified of being hurt again. But I'd like to get to know you too." They shook hands like strangers making a deal, except their fingers held on a little too long and their eyes said everything their words couldn't. Over the next 3 days while Mia recovered in the hospital, something shifted. Daniel came every day, but he didn't push. He brought Lisa coffee and made sure she ate. He read to Mia from her dinosaur books. He met Lisa's family properly this time, as himself, answering their questions honestly even when the answers were uncomfortable. Jessica cornered him on the second day. "You're doing good," she admitted grudgingly. "Keep it up." On the day Mia was discharged, Daniel helped carry her things to Lisa's car. Bessie the Toyota looked especially beat up next to his Mercedes parked nearby, which he'd finally driven. Lisa noticed him looking. "Yeah, I know. Your car probably costs more than my entire apartment building. My car is just a car. It doesn't know any good dinosaur facts or make the world's best grilled cheese sandwiches." Lisa smiled, a real smile this time. "Mia told me you promised to take her to the Natural History Museum when she feels better." "You don't have to do that. I want to. If you'll let me." "Okay, but Daniel, we're taking the bus. If we're starting over, I want you to really understand my life, not just visit it. Deal?" As Daniel drove away that afternoon, watching Lisa's car disappear around the corner, he felt something he hadn't felt in weeks. Not happiness exactly, but possibility, a chance. A real chance to prove himself. The road ahead wouldn't be easy. But then again, Nothing worth having ever was. Starting over was harder than Daniel expected. Not because of anything Lisa did, but because he had to resist every instinct to fix things with money. When her car broke down again 2 weeks after Mia's surgery, his first thought was to buy her a new one. Instead, he showed up with jumper cables and spent an hour, helping her figure out it was just a dead battery. When Lisa mentioned her apartment building's heat wasn't working properly and the landlord was taking forever to fix it, Daniel had to physically stop himself from calling the building owner, who he happened to know from business circles. Instead, he brought over an extra space heater from his place and some warm blankets. "This is killing you, isn't it?" Lisa asked one evening, watching him try to assemble a bookshelf she'd bought secondhand. He was doing it wrong for the third time. "What is? Not throwing money at problems? I can see it on your face every time something comes up." Daniel sat back on his heels, holding a screwdriver. "Is it that obvious?" "Pretty obvious." Lisa sat down next to him on the floor. "But I appreciate that you're trying. Really trying. I just want to make things easier for you." "I know. But easy isn't always better. Mia needs to understand that good things take work, that we earn what we have. If you just fix everything with money, what does that teach her?" Daniel nodded slowly. "You're right. I never thought about it that way. That's because you've had money for so long you forgot what it's like without it." Lisa smiled, but there was sadness in it. "Money solves problems, Daniel, but it also creates distance. I need to know you can exist in my world, not just visit it occasionally before going back to your penthouse." That conversation stuck with Daniel. Over the next month, he made a conscious effort to truly be part of Lisa's life, not just observe it. He took the bus even when he didn't have to. He learned to shop at discount grocery stores and compare prices. He showed up at Lisa's apartment with ingredients to cook dinner together, instead of suggesting restaurants. The Natural History Museum trip with Mia happened on a Saturday. Daniel met them at the bus stop and they rode together downtown. Mia was fully recovered now, bouncing with excitement as she dragged them from exhibit to exhibit. Daniel bought the tickets that felt reasonable, but they brought sandwiches from home for lunch instead of eating at the expensive museum cafe. "Mr. Daniel, look." "It's a T-Rex!" Mia pressed her face against the glass, staring up at the massive skeleton. "Remember when you asked your mom if a T-Rex would be good at soccer?" Daniel crouched next to her. "You remembered that?" Mia looked delighted. "I remember everything you tell me." Lisa watched them together and Daniel caught something soft in her expression, something that looked like hope. On the bus ride home, Mia fell asleep against Lisa's shoulder. Lisa's head rested against Daniel's shoulder. The bus was crowded and smelled like exhaust, but Daniel couldn't remember being happier. "Thank you for today," Lisa said quietly. "Thank you for letting me be part of it." "Daniel," she lifted her head to look at him. "I think we're getting there. Not all the way, but getting there." His heart swelled. "Yeah? Yeah, you're different than you were 2 months ago. More real. Does that make sense?" "It makes perfect sense." Things continued to improve slowly over the next few weeks. Daniel had dinner with Lisa's family most Sundays. Her mother had warmed up to him considerably, especially after he spent an entire afternoon fixing her garbage disposal without complaint. Jessica was harder to win over, but even she admitted he was putting in the effort. Then came the conversation Daniel had been dreading. They were sitting on Lisa's couch late one evening, Mia asleep in her room, when Lisa brought it up. "We need to talk about the future," she said. Daniel's stomach tightened. "Okay, if this works, if we really work, our lives are never going to look normal. You know that, right? You have responsibilities. Your company, your work. You can't just pretend to be a regular guy forever." "I don't want to pretend anymore, but I also don't want to lose this. Lose you. I'm not asking you to choose between me and your life, Daniel. I'm asking you to figure out how to merge them. Because I can't live in your world full-time. I have a job I love. Mia has her school, her friends. This apartment might be small and old, but it's our home." Daniel thought about this carefully. "What if we found a middle ground?" "What does that look like?" "I keep my work, but I set better boundaries. No more 18-hour days unless it's absolutely critical. I spend real time here in your neighborhood, in your life. And when you're ready, only when you're ready, you and Mia start getting to know my world too. Slowly." "I'm scared of your world," Lisa admitted. "The money, the attention, the expectations. I'm scared I won't fit, that people will look at me and Mia and think we don't belong. Then they're idiots. Daniel took her hand. You belong anywhere you want to be, and anyone who matters will see what I see. An incredible woman who's strong and kind and who raised an amazing daughter while working 2 jobs and never complaining. Lisa's eyes filled with tears. I'm still scared. Me too. I'm terrified I'll mess this up again. That I'll disappoint you or do something stupid because I'm still learning how to be the person you need. Maybe we can be scared together. Daniel pulled her close and she tucked her head under his chin. They sat like that for a long time, just breathing together in the quiet apartment. 2 months later, Daniel took Lisa and Mia to meet his mother. He'd told his mom everything over multiple phone calls, including the part where he'd pretended to be poor and spectacularly messed up. His mother, in her typical fashion, had said he was an idiot, but she loved him anyway and couldn't wait to meet the woman who'd captured her son's heart. They drove to his childhood home in Daniel's Mercedes this time. Mia was fascinated by the car's features, pressing every button she could reach. Lisa sat in the passenger seat looking nervous in a pretty blue dress she'd agonized over choosing. She's going to love you, Daniel said for the 10th time. You don't know that. I do know that, because I love you. It was the first time he'd said it since everything had happened. Lisa turned to look at him, her eyes wide. You can't just drop that while you're driving. I love you, Daniel repeated, grinning. I've loved you since that first date when you told me about the pet chicken in the emergency room. I loved you when you cried over Mia's field trip. I loved you when you called me from the hospital. And I love you right now in this car on the way to meet my mother. I love you too, Lisa said, laughing and crying at the same time. Even though you're impossible and you drive me crazy and you still can't put together furniture properly. From the back seat, Mia piped up, Does this mean Mr. Daniel is going to be my dad? Both adults froze. Daniel looked at Lisa. Lisa looked at Daniel. Someday, Lisa said carefully, if that's what everyone wants. But we're not rushing, okay, honey? Okay. But I hope it's soon because I already told my friend Jessica at school that I might get a dad who knows about dinosaurs and computers. Daniel laughed so hard he had to pull over. Lisa was laughing too, and Mia looked pleased with herself. 6 months after that, Daniel proposed. Not with a huge elaborate gesture or an expensive party. He proposed on a Tuesday evening in Lisa's apartment, with Mia as his partner in crime. They'd made Lisa's favorite dinner together. Well, Daniel had tried to help, mostly unsuccessfully. After they ate, Mia gave her mom a card she'd made at school. Inside, in Mia's careful 7-year-old handwriting, it said, Will you marry us? Daniel got down on one knee, holding a ring they'd picked out together. Something beautiful but not so enormous it would get in the way when Lisa was working at the hospital. I know I don't deserve you, Daniel said. I know I messed up badly at the start. But you gave me a second chance and I've tried every day to be worthy of it. Will you marry me? Will you let me be part of your family officially? Lisa was crying again, the happy kind of tears. Yes, yes, of course yes, Mia cheered and jumped up and down. Daniel slipped the ring on Lisa's finger and kissed her, while their daughter made exaggerated, grossed-out sounds. They got married 4 months later. It was a small ceremony in Lisa's mother's backyard. Daniel wore a suit, but not an overly expensive one. Lisa wore a simple white dress that made her look like she was glowing. Mia was the flower girl and took her job very seriously, making sure every petal was perfectly placed. Tom stood up as Daniel's best man. Jessica stood up for Lisa, giving Daniel one final warning look before the ceremony that made everyone laugh. In his vows, Daniel promised to always be honest, to value the life they'd built together over the life he'd had before, and to never let money become more important than moments. In her vows, Lisa promised to be patient with him as he continued learning, to let him help without making him feel useless, and to love him through both the easy times and the hard ones. When the minister pronounced them married, Daniel kissed his wife and then picked up Mia, holding them both close. His mother cried. Tom cried, though he denied it later. Even Jessica smiled genuinely. That evening, at the simple reception with folding chairs and homemade food and music from someone's phone, Daniel looked around at the people celebrating with them. Not business associates or social climbers, real people. Lisa's family, his family friends who'd been there through everything. Lisa found him standing alone for a moment watching Mia dance with her cousins. Happy? She asked, slipping her hand into his. Happier than I ever thought possible, Daniel said honestly.
You know what's funny?
I spent years surrounded by luxury and wealth, but I never understood what it meant to be rich until I met you. That might be the cheesiest thing you've ever said. Probably. But it's true. You gave me something money could never buy. A real life. A real family. Real love. Lisa leaned against him. You gave us something too. Not the money, though, I won't lie. The health insurance through your company is amazing. You gave us yourself. The real you. That's what Mia and I fell in love with. They stood together as the sun set, watching their daughter play, knowing that the life ahead wouldn't always be perfect. They'd have arguments about money and priorities. They'd struggle to blend their very different worlds, but they'd do it together, with honesty and love and a little girl who believed in them both. And really, what more could anyone ask for than that?